Today on the newscast, is the relationship between Israel and Russia reaching the point of no return thanks to Iran? Find out next. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. You're probably asking, where is he? I'm obviously not in the Watchman studio. I am actually at TBN's studio in Tustin, California for a round of meetings and some filming here, but I had to come to you today with some major developments in the unraveling relationship between Israel and Russia, which obviously we have been monitoring very closely here on the newscast over the past few months. We believe that this unraveling has prophetic implications. I'm going to break down the latest in a minute. Before I do, I just want to encourage you to subscribe to the Watchman News channel right here on YouTube and click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Hey, for instance, last weekend we posted throughout the weekend as Israel went toe-to-toe with the Iran-backed terror group Palestinian Islamic Jihad, so make sure you subscribe and get those alerts. Okay, let's break down the latest on Israel and Russia. A very alarming and eye-opening report out of Israeli media that since the Ukraine war started back in February, dozens, over 40 flights, mainly cargo planes, have traveled from Iran to Russia. Now, we had not seen previously this kind of surge in flights between those two countries, but cargo planes, the obvious question, what's the cargo? What's in the planes going from Iran to Russia? And this revelation comes amid similar news that Iran and Russia have reached a deal. And we covered this on the newscast a few weeks ago, where Iran will supply Russia with hundreds of drones of all shapes, sizes, and capabilities, presumably. And now Russian soldiers are already in Iran training on how to use these drones. Now, of course, these drones will be used by the Russian military against Ukraine. That's very clear. But Iran has used drones, obviously, throughout the Middle East, equipped its proxies like Hezbollah, the Houthis, Islamic Jihad, Hamas, Shia militias in Iraq with those drones. And now Russia is getting their hands on them, and they will use them against Ukraine. But really eye-opening to me that you have Russian soldiers on the ground in Iran. The Iranian regime is training Russia on how to use these drones. It shows you, folks, the level that Iran has taken its drone expertise to. And these cargo flights, now presumably on these cargo flights, and we don't know for sure, but obviously an alarming signal when you have dozens going from Iran, the world's #1 state sponsor of terrorism, to any country, especially Russia, a nuclear powerhouse, which is at war right now and which is obviously wrapped in increased hostilities with the United States, where I'm coming to you from. But you have to wonder, what's the cargo? Is it drones? Are there drone parts, fully intact drones? What is going to Russia from Iran? We don't know, but clearly it's alarming. And all of this, of course, comes in the midst of a growing alliance. It's out there in the open now, folks. There's no dispute, a growing alliance between Iran and Russia, including Vladimir Putin's visit last month to Iran, a state visit where they literally rolled out a red carpet for him. He met with Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi, and they came out of this meeting saying, we are thick as thieves, basically, and we are going to increase cooperation in every sphere, from military, economic, trade. So this is a growing alliance, no doubt, to the point where a top Iranian official said that Iran's alliance with Russia is their #1 strategic alliance in the world. So you're going to see more and more. And these two sides, folks, they need each other. On one hand, Russia obviously increasingly isolated on the world stage, thanks to the Ukraine invasion, and cleaving closer to China, Iran, the Assad regime in Syria. And it's interesting because before the Ukraine war, I would say clearly Iran and Syria need Russia more than Russia needs them. But how the tide has turned. Yes, Iran and Syria still need Russia and Russian backing, but hey, Russia needs some friends right now too. And Putin is looking to whoever is still giving him an open embrace in the wake of the Ukraine invasion. And both Iranian and Syrian leaders have gone on record supporting that Russian invasion of Ukraine. So naturally, you're going to see the sides come closer together. And Iran and Syria are pariahs on the international stage in their own right, sanctioned just as Russia is. So, folks, you're seeing a natural coming together. It's really no surprise. Throw China and North Korea in that mix as well. The likes of Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua here in the Western Hemisphere, they're coming together. I've called it the gathering storm against America, but this applies to the entire West, the entire free world, and Israel, of course, as well, which is the first line of defense for the West, the Jewish state in the belly of the beast, quite literally. So these sides will continue to come closer together. Doesn't have very good implications, of course, for the West, for the United States, or for Israel. Let's break that down real quick before I go. Obviously, Israel has tried to maintain good relations with Russia since the Ukraine war broke out, for one reason, chiefly that, look, Russia has thousands of soldiers in Syria at Israel's northern doorstep. Israel wants to maintain freedom of movement in Syria so it can conduct airstrikes against Iran, Hezbollah, and their various allies in Syria, which are planning to attack Israel from Syria. The whole reason Iran is in Syria is to establish a beachhead to launch attacks against Israel, similar to what Hezbollah has done in southern Lebanon. Israel says, no way, red line, we won't allow that, and we won't allow you to ship precision-guided missiles into the hands of Hezbollah to be used against us. So hundreds of airstrikes Israel has carried out against Iran and its proxies over the past few years under the noses of Russia. Is that coming to an end? Because Russia essentially controls Syrian airspace, and I believe a day is coming where Russia is going to say to Israel, no more. Look, not only is Iran, Assad, they've been embarrassed by these Israeli airstrikes. To an extent, Russia is as well. Again, Russian troops are there, and these are Russia's allies, folks. Remember, Putin is shoulder to shoulder with Israel's greatest enemies in the world: Iran, the Assad regime, Hezbollah, Hamas. Hamas was hosted in Moscow just a few months ago. So this is not a surprise what I am reporting to you. It will continue to move in this direction, mark my words. And the relationship between Israel and Russia, I believe, and I hate to say this, it looks like it's going to continue to unravel because Russia has thrown in its lot with Israel's greatest enemies. And I don't see how that bridge can be gapped. I don't see how there can be a coming together between Russia and Israel when Russia is openly supporting and aligning with Israel's greatest enemies. And these drones that Iran is using, they're going to be used, they've already been used against Israel. And there's synergy there between Russia and Iran. The list goes on in terms of the unraveling between Russia and Israel. We've documented it at length here in the newscast. We're keeping a close eye on this. I mentioned, obviously, the prophetic implications. The War of Gog and Magog, funny name, I know, but read this weekend the book of Ezekiel, chapters 38 and 39. That war is unfolded there, and I believe Russia will lead that latter days, L-A-T-T-E-R, latter days invasion, along with Persia, modern-day Iran, and other nations, including most likely Turkey, coming against Israel. Here's the good news as we close. God intervenes in a way, in the eyes of the world publicly, in a way he hasn't in 2,000 years. And that invasion force does not get very far. They meet their demise on the mountains of Israel. So when I'm reporting this, don't get alarmed, don't get discouraged. Be encouraged because God Almighty is still in control. Have a great weekend here from California. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to see more, make sure you go ahead and hit the like button, click subscribe, and tap the bell icon to turn on notifications for new Watchman Newscast episodes every weekday.